You ready?
Sure. Hi, Annie.
Hi, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna start the broadcast and start the recording.
Let's do it. All right, guys. Hi, welcome. Just making sure all of our stuff is in place here. Perfect, perfect. All right. Okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome. To the online teacher training program. Because we are recording today, I'm just gonna kind of get rolling with this. I think that everybody's gonna kind of trickle in, so I'm gonna get the boring stuff out of the way. As everybody trickles in, I want to just say to begin with, I want to say thank you to Annie Bradshaw for putting this together. I think it's really great. I think it's a great opportunity for teachers to come together and get a little bit of information, a little bit of knowledge, and stay active during this weird and wild time. So I want to say thanks to Annie. My name is Tony Clarno. I'm going to be hosting today's program, which is Stick to the Structure. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but first I want to talk a little bit about how this is going to go today. We're going to have the Zoom meeting, and on the side you can see that there's the comment bar. Feel free to add your comments as we go along. I will say that I'm going to save that until the end. I want to make sure that I get a chance to get through most of the material as quickly as I can. I do kind of talk a little bit fast, so you can always rewind or you can always watch this again and get through the material, anything that you missed or anything that you want to kind of go through one more time. But like I said, I do want to save time at the end, so I'm going to kind of blitz through this material as quickly as I can. And as we kind of go through it, hopefully we get at least 10 to 15 minutes to chat about things that are true for your specific circumstances, or perhaps things that maybe you want to talk about that are inside of your gym, or the questions that you have. Okay, so with that in mind, I do want to say again, thank you to Annie, and then introduce myself. My name is Tony Clarno. I am sometimes known as Coach Tony. I'm the founder of Ninja Monkey Gym, which is a ninja program for gyms to license out. I'm also the general manager at Gemini Gymnastics Academy in LaGrange, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. Talk a little bit about my history and what my background is. I was actually a high-level gymnast to start, and then I was transitioned into martial arts, got my black belt in the martial arts, and I was kind of a decent dancer. I've been coaching for about 20 years in everything from parent-taught all the way through optional gymnastics. But about 8 years ago, I was given just an absolutely amazing opportunity to shift into management by some of the best mentors any person could ask for. And as a result, I was absolutely hooked and totally loved it. So since then, I've been managing. I've been a program manager. And I am now fortunate enough to be the general manager of a booming boutique gymnastics facility called Gemini Gymnastics Academy. So full disclaimer, this is all from my view, from my perspective, both as a coach, as a program director, as a small business owner, and of course, as a general manager. So a lot of the things that you're going to hear today are from that perspective, obviously. Now, if you are watching today and you are either a program director or a coach, some things to keep in mind. It's great if the structure of today, of the things that you are learning today, if there's already a solid structure at your gym, well, that's awesome. And maybe you only take away 5 or 10% of this and you just build upon that solid structure. If you're working in a gym and you are a coach and you're like, man, our facility doesn't really have the kind of structure that makes me feel awesome, makes me feel like I'm coming into a class every day excited and ready to have fun and feeling valued. Well, this is a great opportunity to kind of recognize some of those things, and you can either develop those alongside of your program director, or the owner, or whoever your managers are, or you can take some of these ideas and just put them in for yourself. And when you have them in for yourself, that's great, because then you can find ways to take that structure and make your day even better, more enjoyable. All right, enough about that. Let's get jamming, shall we? Okay, so first of all, why are we talking about this, right? We're talking about structure, sticking to the structure, and why it makes your experience as a coach better, and why it's actually easier for yourself and for the kids. Well, we're talking about it today because one of the first questions that I always get when people are coming to me about the Ninja Monkey program, and they're saying, hey, can you send me a sample lesson plan? And I say, well, you know what? I don't really have lesson plans, not in the traditional sense. And they kind of look back at me a little bit shocked, like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. Usually, sometimes they kind of wax and wane on whether or not this is going to be what's right for them. But one of the things that I like to say is that, hey, traditional lesson plans aren't necessarily, in my opinion, the best way to have the structure inside of your class, right? As we're talking about the structure and the lesson plans, we're going to make a kind of a little bit of a distinction between the two. Great lesson plans actually have a solid structure, and a great structure actually kind of inherently involves some interchangeable elements of a lesson plan. But for today, we're going to draw some pretty clear distinctions. Yeah. But when I'm talking about a great structure, right, the things that I want to really focus on are things inside your class, inside your lesson, that really gear everything towards great coach engagement. All right. So at the end of the day, you want kids to be safe, obviously, but what you really want to develop is a strong relationship with a dedicated coach. And I feel like a great solid structure should help with that. Every structure should have creative thinking, not just for the kids, but also for the coaches. We as humans, we love to problem solve, right? So if your structure really speaks to that problem solving element, you're good to go. All right, and you got to have a reward system. You've got to have a reward system in place that allows coaches to funnel all of their creativity towards goals inside of it, right? We're going to get to that in a little bit. All right, so when we talk about traditional lesson plans, this is where I'm going to draw some of these distinctions. When I think about traditional lesson plans, I think about a roadmap, right? Somebody hands you a roadmap and says, okay, you're going to take a right, you're going to take a left, you're going to go forward, and you're going to land at your destination, right? That's what I think about with lesson plans, kind of like the rights and lefts to make sure that you get to the right place. But here are some of the challenges that I see with it. A lesson plan is based on time, usually. For example, week 1, you're going to do this. Week 2, you're going to do that, right? So a traditional lesson plan, it's based on times. It has prescribed daily activities, usually just handed to the coach and say, hey, follow this. But there's some flaws involved in this, right? You can see the flaws listed, but I want to tell you a story about that I feel like really illustrates the flaws that we're going to talk about. When I was a manager some years ago, somebody came to me and said, hey, I got this program. Boom, here it is. 50 weeks of lesson plans, all done for you. It's plug and play. And I was like, whoa, this is really awesome. And this has a lot of work that's gone into it. But I can already see that we're going to run into some speed bumps here. So for example, what happens when we get to week 5 and a new kid walks in the door? Am I going to walk them through 1 through 4? Are they going to be doing that material alongside the people who have already done that material 1 through 4? That's going to be a little bit of a challenge. And I can see where we're going to get off track pretty early with those new students. Another thing is And I'll use Gemini as a great example. You're not always going to have the same access to the same equipment. That's not always true for every gym. If you've got a big gym and you've got dedicated areas, well, sure, maybe. But I can speak from my experience inside of our facility. We have 45 just ninja classes a week. So just ninja classes, we've got 45 of them. And Tuesday at 4:30 is totally different than Saturday at 10 a.m., right? They're going to go to different places. They're going to have a different coach. They're going to be using different equipment because they're not going to have access to the same thing. It's just going to be different. So it's going to be a challenge to try and figure out how to make that rote lesson plan function in both of those two scenarios. What's more than that is not every kid's the same. You have a lesson plan and it says, okay, by week 6, they should have A, B, C, and maybe D. But maybe some kids already have only A, and they need a little bit more time. And maybe some kids are ready for Q. They're chomping at the bit to try to move forward. These are some of the flaws that I see when I look at a lesson plan that's based on time instead of some other options that are available. So here are some of the staffing consequences that you run into. Because it's not just about the kids, right? We just talked about how having rote lesson plans really gets into a little bit of problem areas for kids who are coming a little bit late to the party. If you're on monthly instead of session-based classes, that sometimes you're going to run into that problem where kids are coming and going as they see fit. So that's one of the challenges you're going to face for the kids. But let's talk about the staff. Right? Let's talk about us as coaches. I know for me, if I am handed a rote lesson plan, one of the first things that happens is I kind of feel like a robot. Maybe it's nice to just have the material there for the first 4 or 5 weeks as I'm getting introduced to a business. But as a coach, that is going to wear off real fast. And if I'm really trying to think about, man, I want to find my home for the next 5, 10 years as an instructor, I don't want to feel like a robot. I don't want to feel like somebody hands me something and I got to follow the roadmap, right? I'll get bored really fast. I'm a creative person. So I'll kind of come in and punch the clock and say, all right, well, I guess I'll do my lesson plan. And then I go home. Get kind of bored, right? Another thing is that I feel you might feel undervalued as a coach. When you're looking at the lesson plan, you're like, man, I got ideas. I want to contribute. I want to be a part of the process. So maybe you're underutilized, undervalued when somebody just hands it to you. I am a very creative person. And I want to think and puzzle things out, and I want to feel creatively fulfilled. So maybe sitting down with a lesson plan, one of the things that I found that I would do when I was in scenarios where I had lesson plans is I'd sit down and I'd change it. I'd write all over it, be like, do this and do that. And instead, it wasn't always the best choice in the scenario, but as far as trying to follow the lesson plan, but I found that's what I needed to be creatively fulfilled. And the last part of this is that when you hand somebody something, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're learning it. They're not really being encompassed inside of this, the program that you've created. You're just essentially giving them the instructions and not necessarily allowing them the ability to get in there the way that and to grow the way that you might want them to. Okay, so those are some of the consequences. Let's talk about what a good structure actually looks like. A good structure is actually the framework for learning. Okay, so let's talk about that. The structure of your classes is the framework for learning. So that's a much more encompassing statement, and more than, hey, at this time you're going to go here, you're going to go there, you're going to go there, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, right? That's an itinerary, and maybe a lesson plan, depending on what is going on inside of your business. But what we're really talking about is the framework for learning. What have you put in place for your children to actually process and retain the information that is being received, and in what format is that being delivered to them? right? So the framework isn't just for the kids though. It's also for your staff. Does that make sense? So the structure of a really good structured program doesn't just teach the kids, it also teaches your staff. Not just how to learn more stuff about the curriculum itself, but also how to learn more stuff about how kids learn, right? If you've got a solid structure, it's going to be all encompassing. It's not just going to be, all right, to do a forward roll, you need to make sure you keep your knees and your ankles together, right? It's going to be, when I teach this forward roll, I want to use it, I want to come at it from this perspective. That's all going to be encompassed inside of a really good structure. As opposed to a lesson plan, which is based on time, a really good structure for a program will be based on goals, right? Every day, well, we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but the time aspect of it should be irrelevant. However long it takes them to learn something is how long it takes them to learn it, right? They shouldn't be trying to learn something on week one and then move on. They should be trying to learn things, and however long it takes them to learn it, that's just fine. So you need to figure out how to construct a structure inside of your training that if somebody needs 6 months to learn something and somebody walks in having known it, or learns it in 3 weeks, well, the structure has to fit both of those persons. Sometimes a lesson plan can fall down in that area. All right, and instead of prescribed activities, you want prescribed concepts. So things like skill challenges, things like strength challenges. These are concepts that allow you to have more options inside of what happens inside of your class to fit more students. And once again, these are the kind of things that are going to develop you as a coach, as opposed to somebody just saying, hey, have them do 5 chin-ups today. You're going to say, hey, develop a strength challenge that's right for your class today. We'll get to that in a minute. All right, so talked a lot about lesson plans and structure. Let's just stick to structure, okay? Let's just talk about what a solid structure is. A solid structure comes in 2 parts, all right? We've got the class itinerary, the things that happen on the day, and that breakdown. The breakdown is what I would consider your curriculum, okay? And then we've also got goal setting. Okay, our goal setting are the long-term ideas and concepts that we want to make sure are a part of our experience, right? So let's look at those 2 processes individually, all right? First, let's talk about the class itinerary. The things that you're going to want to think about when you're creating your class itinerary, all right? So as I'm creating my class itinerary, one of the things that I really want, that I really like as a kind of is I want to tell you a little bit about Gemini Gymnastics. When we constructed our class itinerary, Gemini Gymnastics is really quite compact, okay? We took 8,000 square feet and we were able to pack 1,100 students into that, which is great, right? And the only way that it functions inside of that is it needs a rotation schedule, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But when you're creating your class itinerary, that's something you're going to have to keep in mind. How much space do I have? And where are those people going to go? So when you start, you're going to start with knowing the fact that every gym is different on this, right? Every single gym is going to be different. Maybe you have pit, maybe you don't have a pit. Maybe you've got 4 pits, right? So that's going to really alter what it is, how many staff you have, whether it's 5 employees or 55 employees. So every class itinerary is going to be a little bit different. The events that you go to when you're creating your curriculum, your structure, you want to really make sure that you focus on what events are we going to go to and how long are we going to be there. The locations. Okay, events and locations are different things when you think about your structure. For example, when you are teaching vault, you don't have to be at the vaulting area, right? I mean, you think about how many drills can you do on a tumble track for vault? How many drills can you do on the floor for vault? So events and locations are different things when you're creating your structure, right? Your rotations, how long you're going to be there, when you're going to go, when you're going to rotate, right? That's a part of your structure. That's a part of your class experience. What else is a part of your structure and your class experience is what happens before the class. The 10 to 15 minutes that happen before class. Do you talk with the parents? Do you talk with the kids? What do you talk about, right? So often people think of that as part of your culture and your business. But I like to think of it as part of the class structure. How are you preparing the kids for the class? What things are you talking about inside the lobby before the class that really gets the kids ready for learning, right? Because our structures are framework for learning. So what things are you doing to really speak to that? And then of course you got the after class part. What things are you doing after the class that still speak to the class structure? Are you going out and talking to parents about the child's, favorite colors, or the favorite colors on their leotard? Or are you talking to them about some of the things that they learned and the ways that they learned? And are you asking them questions about how you could learn more about them? And are you able to apply that to what's happening inside the gym, right? The before class and the after class, you can take that engagement and actually make it work towards your class structure. All right. If you are interested in trying to figure out how to construct locations and rotations, once again, this is where I kind of tell you, we were able to adjust our classes and fit 1,100 people into 800 square feet. So if you're really interested in trying to figure out a class structure that actually has a really defined rotation schedule, you can find me on YouTube. You can go to Ninja Monkey Gym, and there's a locations and rotations video on there. That's a great little breakdown on how you can take inside of your gym and make sure that you've really designated areas and things to do inside of it. Okay, so that's a good resource for you. All right, now we're going to talk about goal setting. So we talked about the itinerary and the things that you're going to need inside of the breakdown, right? Your events and your locations and all of that stuff. Now let's talk about goal setting. All right, every day coaches should come in thinking, man, how can I get Susie to kip this year, right? Because that is a long-term goal. How am I going to get Susie to kip? That should be the main objective for your structure. Setting these goals, and the goals should be based on the levels that you've constructed inside of your program, right? So level 1 or whatever it is that you want to call it should have the goals at the end, right? The goals and the objectives at the end. And the coaches are really focused on coming in every day and directing their kids towards those goals, setting up a framework so that the kids are always working towards those specific goals inside of their program, inside of your program, and not just on all of the events, but also inside of with these strength challenges and some of these skill challenges, right? So we're not trying to do this on day 1 and do that on day 2, right? Instead, we're saying our goal. So for example, if we were teaching floor, right? And I said, okay, on day 1, I'm going to teach these kids forward rolls. And then on day 2, I'm going to teach them straddle rolls. And then on day 3, I'm going to teach them backward rolls, right? That would be based on time. Instead, I'm going to say, okay, on floor, I'm going to put together my main objectives. My main objectives are, I want everybody in level 1 to have a forward roll, a handstand, and a cart. Okay? Now, every day that we come in, I'm going to say, look, I really want everybody to nail these main objectives, these main goals. So let's really focus towards that. We're not just going to do that. We're going to do other things too. We're going to have that strength challenge. We're going to have that skill challenge to make sure that we stay interesting and we stay diverse inside of our program. But we're going to really focus most of our energy towards those main goals. And because of that, what's going to happen is that whether kids come in week 2 or week 7, everybody's going to be on the same path together, right? We're all just shooting towards the goals. Now, that's for your curriculum, right? But you also need to make sure that you're setting your goals inside of the rest of your structure, right? I said a little bit earlier that the structure isn't just about what's happening inside the gym, right? What's happening before the gym or before the class, what's happening after the class, right? These are all actually a part of your structure as well. So what structure do you have in place for your culture expectations for your coaches, right? That would be the before the class and the after the class and how they help each other. Maybe they assist another class. Maybe there's growth expectations. Maybe how they communicate how are they moving rotations, moving from one place to the other? Are they celebrating little victories inside of their class? You know, how they're communicating with the kids inside of their class. What's more than that, your structure can incorporate safety, right? So do you have risk management systems inside of your gym? And how can you take those risk management systems and actually place them inside of your class structure so that they work together? For example, at Gemini, we have pathways, designated pathways for people to walk on. But what is it about your class structure that allows them to walk on those pathways in a way that actually befits learning? For example, when they walk on these lines, can you just make it a part of their beam training and have them walking on tiptoes on every single line? Right now, this safety element is actually a part of our class structure. And kids are continuing to learn. Communication expectations. What expectations for how coaches communicate with parents? How can you make that a part of your class structure? If you have rules inside of your gym, where you say, okay, we try to observe this rule, we try to respect our coaches, we try to respect our friends. What expectations can you set in place for the coaches that they're communicating those rules to parents before and after class? And by doing so, how are they actually building out your structural experience inside of your class? You know, all of a sudden, we've expanded what our framework of learning is outside of the things that are happening inside of the class and out to the lobby and out to just general communication, right? Okay. The last thing is you got to have a reward system in place. You've got to have things that allow kids to see the results of their hard work. What I really like is we've developed, I don't know if you've heard about it, but we've developed this thing called the Achieve sleeve. It's this really awesome sleeve that they wear. This is actually the new one, the badge band. And they earn these cool peel and stick badges, right? So as they hit certain benchmarks inside of their learning, they can grab one of these badges and say, oh my goodness, you totally nailed your forward roll today. I'm so proud of you, right? And then they can just have one of these badges placed onto their sleeve. And it's a permanent little part of their experience. So they earn these badges and boom. And it just sticks on there. So there's a lot of different ways that you do it. You do it with gold stars, you can do it with whatever, but by front loading these goal setting aspects, what you're also doing is you're taking your structure and you're saying, hey, coaches, Here are things that I want you to make sure that you're making a focus inside of your class. You're aiming towards these goals. You're aiming towards these rewards. And then if Stephanie over here doesn't seem to be offering as many rewards to her students as Brian over there, then maybe the result is that that Stephanie doesn't fully understand what's going on inside of the structure. She doesn't really understand how to make sure that she's a goal-focused coach instead of a timeline-focused coach. All right, so if you're able to get all of these things in place, right, you're able to set your goals, you're able to incorporate safety, communication, parent communication, and a reward system inside of one structure, right? Then what you can do is just educate all your coaches on it and just let them go. Just let them go, right? The best comparison that I can make is if you're able to take this idea and say, okay, well, there's the class time, but then there's all the other things, you know, and I want to build all of it into a giant framework of learning. Instead of just the individual steps that happen inside the class, but this kind of broader sense of it. The way that I look at it is it's kind of like showing or teaching your coaches all about the matrix and then just letting them go all Neo on it. Right? Because if they know all the goals, then they're going to come in every day and they're going to really try and figure out, well, how am I going to get my student to achieve this goal? Maybe not today, but maybe 5 weeks from now. Well, I got to start with this, and I got to keep them engaged over here, and I got to make sure that I'm having conversations with their parents so that I better understand, and I've got my safety structures in place, right? It's all encompassing. Sometimes it happens that as we go through these as I go through these conversations with gym owners, they say, well, that's culture. I mean, you're talking about culture and all of those other things. Yeah, but culture is like structure blown up again. You know, if structure is the solar system, then culture is the Milky Way, right? Because culture takes one more step back on this, right? Culture focuses on management, customer service, sales, marketing, brand awareness, HR, training, financials, all of them are encompassed in culture. This is just what happens inside the gym. And a really great structure recognizes that it's not just inside the gym, it's also outside and having conversations with parents. All right. So when you have a great structure, it means you've got happier coaches. They understand their goals. They understand their job. They feel like they can be creative. They feel like they can be themselves, right? Because they get a chance to be Neo, to figure it out. They're not just handed something. You got happier managers, which obviously makes for happier coaches too, right? Happier managers because the coaches are happy. And the coaches are happier because the managers are happier because they're creating authentic relationships every single day with the kids. You know, in order to coach classes inside of your structure, you're going to have an authentic relationship with the child. You're going to and understand their goals, and you're going to have an authentic relationship with their parents, which is great. But what's more than that is the manager, in order to express culture, to express the structure and get coaches inside of that, they're going to have to develop an authentic relationship with the coach as well. It's not a, hey, here's this thing, go do it. You know, they're going to have to sit down and they're going to say, okay, let's talk about why we do this. Let's talk about how the framework of learning really affects who we are as a business, right? And they have to take that moment to teach the coaches about the matrix. Now, from my experience, this doesn't take longer. Instead, it takes more dedicated time to focus on the things that are important inside of the framework of learning, right? You don't need to shadow more coaches. You need to watch the coaches and actually take notes and really understand, well, what are they doing towards the structure, not just the things that they're fixing on the children. That's a piece of it, right? The coach's eye and the adjustments. But what about the structure? And if you can gear their training towards the structure, I find that it doesn't take any more time than if you just have them memorize the lesson plans. All right. That's it for now on this stuff. I want to get to your comments, but I want to make sure that you know how to find me. You can find me on my website, which is ninjamonkeygym.com. You can find me on YouTube at Ninja Monkey Gym. You can find me on Facebook at Ninja Monkey Gym. You can find me on Instagram at Ninja Monkey Gym. There's my email. I want to open this up to comments. I want to make sure that I'm going to do this right. Okay. So this kind of ends the part of the program where we discussed all of the that stuff, and I want to kind of hear what your thoughts are. All right. All right. So our first question is, what do you do about staff who won't do anything on their own? They prefer to have someone tell them what to do. I want them to use their creativity. How do you hone in on their creativity or make them use their own ideas? This is a super good question. You can't make people want to do things. This is my experience. There's just no way. If somebody doesn't want to do it, then the first question that you have to ask is this person a fit? If you know that to be true, and what this person does want to do is just come in and do their thing, a really solid structure is going to have most of that in place. For example, if they are goal setting, right, and you've already laid out what the goals are, and they've gone through their training, they're going to know all the drills, or at least all the basic drills. And so what you have to put in place is a bunch of accountability barriers to say, hey, you need to make sure that you understand these elements of what needs to happen inside of the gym. So here's a good example. When constructing the program, what we did is we had our goals in one column on a piece of paper, and then we had our must-have drills, and then we had our challenges, right? So inside of our goals, those are the things that kids need to accomplish in order to move to the next level. And then we had the must-have drills. This is that section where I would say to somebody who doesn't want to, they would just prefer to have somebody tell them what to do, just have them memorize what you would consider your must-haves, right? If you decide that in order for a kid to learn a handstand, they must learn a box pose, great. Put that in your must-have column and just make sure that they understand, like, hey, you really want to focus on those must-haves. All right. I used to do detailed lesson plans, but got complaints and questions about this in class. And this, why they don't, okay, let me understand this a little bit better. I used to do detailed lesson plans, but got many complaints about why this class does this and why don't they do the same as this coach or the last coach did things the same way. Do you get these complaints or questions, and how do you deal with them? I think that is going to be a permanent experience because every coach is going to be individual and unique. So the goal would be inside of it is that every coach is making sure that they are playing to their personality strengths. Even two team coaches who you would think are all teaching towards the same level 3, right? They're going to still do things differently because they just are going to play to their strengths. And you might inherently end up getting complaints about those two different coaches, even though they're literally teaching the same curriculum. Because the truth of the matter is that everybody engages with kids in different ways, and everybody's going to feel differently. But your goal would be to make sure that the coaches are engaging with the students with authentic relationships, because those authentic relationships, to be honest, are going to just absolutely trounce. If the child comes out saying, oh my goodness, I had a great time today, that's the win, right? That's the absolute win. So you want to make sure that the structure really focuses towards the fun. Tips for teen coaches who say who like said above don't seem to have the time for planning ahead. Okay, great, super good question. Here is what I have found to be true. When a teen coach or when somebody says, hey, I don't have time to construct this material, is the question. Here is my response to that. And here is my experience. When the structure is in place and the structure is really, really, really strong, that means there's a rotation schedule. That means the goals are super clear. That means the challenges are laid out for them. There's time before and after class. I'm talking like 10 minutes to communicate with parents. There's never a question of, oh man, I just need somebody to hand me the stuff. Because on their first day of actually teaching the class, they already know the information. They already have everything they need. And my experience is usually 4 weeks is all you need to train somebody towards that. Maybe 6, depending on how much experience they had. But I had a coach come in about 6 or 7 months ago. She was a teenager, and she had some gymnastics experience, not a lot. She had some coaching experience. 4 weeks later, boom, she's in. She's never had a question about the structure. She's had communication questions like, oh, a parent said this to me, or what do I do, and blah, blah, blah. But boom, right in. Most of the time, that has been my experiences, regardless of the coach's age. If they're not feeling confident, there are things about the material that you want to train up. So for example, make sure that they fully understand the goals and tricks and tips to get kids towards those goals. If they need a few more drills, or if they need a few more concepts, make sure that you have veteran coaches available. We actually do ongoing training. We just do like a 20-minute session once or twice a month with every coach. 20 minutes. Who doesn't have 20 minutes? And they can come in and just ask a couple questions. And we find that they figure it out and they have fun doing it. That's been my experience. Okay. In a smaller gym, let me check the time. We've got a few more minutes. Give some examples of challenges. Okay, challenges would be like a skill challenge of the week. So maybe your curriculum says that you need to learn a forward roll, a backward roll, a handstand, and a cartwheel. Well, maybe you just have as a fun challenge, maybe you put straddle rolls in there, right? And so 1 week you just have as a side station, kids are trying their straddle rolls, right? It keeps it fun and engaging. It's good stuff towards the curriculum, but it's not necessarily a requirement or a goal in the curriculum. Same with strength challenges. You don't want to say for level 1 that everybody has to be able to do a pull-up, right? So every week you're just going to give them a different challenge, a different way to focus on something new, right? It's stuff that's good for them, but not necessarily a requirement inside their experience. Speak to having lesson plans for safety and risk. Oh, this is super good. I really, really like this question. This is a really good question, okay? When you're creating your structure, you want the way your class functions, the itinerary and the breakdown, to incorporate safety and risk management. For example, at the beginning of every class, you can go over the rules. If you've got 15 rules inside your gym, you can maybe pare those down, right? But if you just, every single class, you stand in front and you say, hey, we're going to go over the rules every single day. If the kids are like, wow, we have this memorized, great, good job. They got them memorized. But then you also want to find ways to recognize what are some of these risk management things. For example, is there enough space between kids as they take their turns? Like, how can you make your class function so that it is also recognizing some of these safety and risk management aspects and just have it be a part of their experience. Maybe they don't walk by that dangerous trampoline. Maybe as part of the class experience, they walk around and go this way, right? You can actually build that into your itinerary and your structure. Another thing that we do is the safety stick, safety rules, all of these things. We make it a separate part of their curriculum. So we call it a safe landing master, right? So if once kids learn how to land safely and fall safely, we give them a completely separate reward and say, oh my goodness, congratulations, isn't this awesome? All right. Okay, I think we got time for maybe one more. How do you feel about doing it? I love focus skills on lesson plans, just in general, focus skill, love it, love it, love it, love it. Oh, how many rules? I noticed that you have I listen, then I ninja. How many rules do you have and how do you present them? We just got 3. We just got 3 rules, makes it super easy. Having the written lesson plan, some gyms have them because they needed to provide during litigation. Okay, this is a great final question. Lesson plans, having them written to provide before litigation. If you are a coach out there, right, you just heard some words that made you go, oh God, litigation. Okay, it's super scary. Here is what I want to clear up. A lesson plan is not a nebulous mental concept. It is written, a structure, a super good structure is not a nebulous written, just inside your brain that you just kind of talk about and have conversations. Man, it needs to be written down. It's going to be written down as here are all of the goals. Then here are all of the challenges. Then here are all of the drills. It's not less work in any way, shape, or form. And it's not less organized. If anything, it is more organized, right? You're going to have how you communicate with parents, what you do before class, what you do after class, what you do in class, what you do at an event, what you do at a location. And what you've done is you've built out all of the things, all of them. And it takes a lot of time, right? But once you've built them all out, then you can introduce them to your coaches as the matrix. Here is the matrix that you are going to operate inside of. And as you present, if you needed to inside of litigation, what you are saying is like, here is the framework for everything that happens inside of a class. It's not like, this was, day 14, so they should have been doing this lesson plan. It's like, no. Every day that clients come into our business, they experience all of this. This is all a part of what we do to keep everybody safe, to keep them on target and heading towards their goals. All right, guys, I think that's it. I think that's all we got time for. I want to thank you so much. Once again, you can find me on ninjamonkeygym.com. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram at Ninja Monkey Gym. Send me an email. You got more questions? Send them to me. I love this stuff. I love talking about it. I love talking about all the things. And also on Thursday, we're going to talk about how Ninja gives you the things that we can learn from the Ninja programs that are out there and how they can just supplement those programs that you've got going inside your gym right now. All right, thank you, everybody. It's been an absolute blast. I can't wait to talk to you guys again. Stay safe, stay strong.